Hello and welcome to the first episode in my series of coding tutorials. So, here we go. Let's get into the requirements. At least a basic knowledge of C Sharp. And an experimental mind, even though it says it's a requirement, it's pretty much optional. You can follow it by the book if you really want to, but it's always nice to toy around with the code that is given. Anyways, on to what will be built when it's done. This is what will be built when it's done. So when this is once this is it's 100 code lines or so, and it's two code files. One's the helper file, which contains like the random integer, read text, load score, write score, etc. Other than that, that's it. Default. Some of this stuff is kind of not necessary, but if you want to, like, let's say, have a command line option to put a new text document as your word list, then some of this is kind of necessary. Let's get started, shall we? What you want to do after you get here is you want to create a new project. You want to actually, let me find the C# console app, which is what you want. You can pick either console app, not framework or console app. They're basically the same thing. But anyways, so next, name it whatever you want. I'm gonna name mine guessing game tutorial because that's what we're doing today. I would pick Network Framework 4.5 as it is very very versatile. You can still use Windows XP on it. I mean, ignore this. You can delete that if you did pick the regular just console app. Starting off, you have your program. Does nothing right now, so if we were to go and, like, let's say, well, it does nothing in its current state, and you'll see when I click the start button. 3, 2, 1. Come on. Shut down. There we go. Okay. So there goes. It's shut down, and that's all it does, right? You can delete a lot of the usings. You only need 3 usings for this one. Using system collections generic, and using system.io. Make sure to put a semicolon at it, and I've done that. I've done goofs like that before. Trust me, it's not fun. Especially trying to dig through your code, trying to find a semicolon missing or whatnot. Now, a guessing game is kind of a mid-level base, but it should do its job nicely as a beginning game. So let's start by adding a new item. If you don't want to have if you don't want to have multiple classes, just copy what's in the helper file. Well, everything inside of the class program or class helper into here. So here's the helper class, our newly founded helper class. So, sorry, I'm trying to bounce around. So, now, if we were to take, like, let's say, well, shoot. So, we're gonna start with the helper class, right? Which requires 3 usings as well. Same three as in the same three that are required in program, which are system, system.collections.generic, and system.io. So, a lot of system stuff. If I can spell. System. Nope. .io. There we go. So, any of the other ones are unnecessary as they're not needed for what we're doing. The helper class, you want to make a list of strings. That's the first thing you want to do, and it's just a static list. The list, just the brackets just mean type a list it is, and you want a list of strings. This is a little bit different than an array, but I'm not qualified enough to talk about how they're different. So you can name it something. I'm gonna name this one lines, and equals new string list parentheses semicolon. That's gonna be needed later on. This is actually for the what that's actually for is for reading the text that comes when you need to when you want to make an argument for doing extra stuff. So you can omit that if you don't want it, but you know. But anyways, we're gonna do our score saving and loading next. So starting with a method, public static. Mind you, all the things in helper are static as they're needed to be accessed from the main program loop. So anyways, so bouncing around, public static void, name it something like save score, and parentheses. Now this method takes two arguments: a string of a file name and the integer, which is your score. There you go. That's your method. And then the load score basically is the same thing, just it actually takes an integer return value instead of a void. So, and there's a reason for that, and I'll get into it in a minute. So now once you get into I did that for that way it doesn't give me any errors when I try and compile it. So anyways, starting with your save score, which is it's actually easier to do the save score than it is the load score. So even though it takes a little more code, because it's just copy and paste pretty much with the if else. So if you're to do if double tab, so when I say double tab, it means hit the tab key twice. Well, it's a Visual Studio 2015 onwards thing. And if you want if file dot exists parentheses file name. Oh, caps is on. That's not fun. Okay. So here's the tricky part. Input output. You're gonna want a binary writer. Name it what you want equals new binary writer parentheses file dot open, and you want to do file name comma file mode dot open. Binary writer dot write, and then you want it to write the score. If I can spell. And then make sure you close the stream. You don't want to get an issue when you don't close the stream, because that happens. And it happens quite often too. Now, next part is an else statement, which it's pretty similar. And what you do after you've done that is you Control C, Control C, and paste. Control V. Now, once this is done, you can finally. There's only one thing in this section that you have to edit. That's different from up here. If the file does not exist, you need to create it. You can't open something that's not there. So, yeah. And there's your save score. Make sure you save often. Control Shift S does wonders. It saves every file in your program. And tell me, that's a lifesaver. Anyways, going on to our load score function, which does a lot more than what you'd think. So now it's also an if statement of file that exists. Jeez, can I spell today? I'm a bit tired, so file dot exists, file name, and this is where the main chunk of the writing and where the main chunk of the reading goes, as it's only just your crap. I can't think of how to explain it. So the binary reader is what you're trying to do here. Binary reader, I call mine just by its initials, BR, equals new binary reader, and same thing as up here where it's file.open, more parentheses, file name, comma, file mode dot open, semicolon. Then you want to make an integer. This is important. And just name it something. I don't care what. As in my original code, I called it LOL. Don't ask why. But this part one's only going to be the helper file because I don't know how long I'm getting in. So I think I'm going to split this into 3 parts. So loading the score is simpler than you'd think. It's just making an integer, telling the binary reader to put the integer as the variable, and closing the stream, and then returning the variable. That's it. And I'll demonstrate that right quick, as this is a CLE init score temp equals br dot read int 32, because I doubt you're gonna get anything higher than like a, you know, anything higher than 2 billion. I doubt you get anything higher than a 16-bit integer, but that's besides the point. Anyways, so starting here with read int 32, parentheses, semicolon, binary reader dot close, and you return score tab. And that's else, if it cannot find the file, you're gonna want to make it whine, because we don't need a program that doesn't tell you what's wrong. Console.writeLine. Make the base set and name it file space. Spacing's important here. Do some concatenation. Quotes space does not this shouldn't happen if the code is executed correctly. Like save score executed always before and then after the game has ended. So this is the base helper file, except for the last two things, which is, let's see, how will I explain this? Next one is, this one actually takes that list we made earlier. Public, come on, where are you? There you are. Public static string, and make sure you do square brackets because this is an array. Read text from a string input. There we go. That would cause some issues if it was just normal. So if it's just in, it would cause an issue. But if it's input, it'll be normal. So now this one's a bit more complicated. We need to initialize a stream reader, and only a stream reader. So initials equals new stream reader file dot open read input. Make sure this little buddy goes by itself. Ooh, excuse me. And then while, actually I'll just do that really quick so it's a little easier to work with. As long as it's not reached the end of the stream, as long as it hasn't reached that point, we want to do string. See, my spelling's is not on point today, but SR. What? Okay, there we go. Dot. Now, inside the while loop, you need to do string line equals whatever you named your stream reader dot read line. and then make sure to set this temporary line string as your read line. So if the line equals nothing, continue. And this can that's why it's all compressed on one line. You could do the curly braces and it would work as well, but it's not worth it. Well, actually, it is worth it, but it isn't at the same time. It takes more space. So you want to do lines.add, which, remember, when we made that lines list up here, what it did was it makes a function, or makes a list that you can add just a number of strings to. It's like an array, and it can be converted into an array. But, because they're basically the same thing, they're just made differently. This is as best as I can explain it. So, which then add the line to the lines list. Semicolon. And once you're done in this while loop, you want to do a return. Nope. RET. Return your lines dot to array. Which does exactly what you think it does. It converts this list into a string array. A list of strings into a string array. So, one more thing and this episode is over. I'll explain why in a minute, but I'm breaking it up into multiple episodes so that way you guys can just take a break from what you need, or if you want to continue, just go on to the next episode. This one is probably the easiest one of them all to understand. It's a random integer generator. And because it's a built-in function in C#, you can do just public static int. I called this one random int. And parentheses. Do int min. Int max. There's a reason for that. And this is literally 2 lines. So what this does is you need to declare a new random function. Random rand equals new random, because you can't just declare it in the program itself. So you have to do it in a function by itself, which is weird, but and then you just return your random.next. Of course I don't spell it right, but next. Make sure you do your semicolon, but if you don't put anything in, it'll do a number between 0 and 1. If you put just one number, it'll be up to that number. If you put 2, it'll be in between those numbers. So and there we are. Your finished guessing game helper file. Now remember, if you don't want to have multiple files, even though it makes it easier, you just basically select everything from the second curly brace up and paste it into your program. but I don't do that. Anyways, I hope you have a good one, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.